When I was 18, my mother told me I was dead to the family. That night, she changed the locks. When I turned 18, most of my friends were celebrating newfound freedom, college acceptances, first cars, moving into dorms. For me, it felt like the opposite. My so-called freedom was being shoved out the door by the very people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. I still remember the exact words my mother said. Her face was cold, her voice sharp, as though she had rehearsed it for years. "You are dead to this family. Don't come back until you're successful. If you fail, don't ever set foot in this house again." I laughed nervously at first, thinking she was exaggerating. But she wasn't. That night, when I went out to clear my head, she literally changed the locks. I came home to find my key useless, my things thrown into garbage bags on the porch like I was yesterday's trash. My little sister pressed her face to the window, crying, but she didn't open the door. My mother just stood behind her, arms crossed, as if she had won some kind of battle. I had no money. No real plan. Just an old backpack, a phone with a half-dead battery, and the heavy knowledge that my family had written me off like an old debt. At first, I crashed on friends' couches, rotating between whichever one's parents didn't mind an extra body for a night or two. I tried picking up shifts at a fast food place, but without a permanent address, transportation, or even reliable meals, keeping a job was brutal. I was too embarrassed to tell anyone the truth, that my own mother had disowned me like some kind of disgrace. Weeks blurred into months. There were nights I slept in the back of an abandoned car, wrapping myself in 2 hoodies to fight off the cold. I can still remember the feeling of my breath turning into frost inside the car. I'd scroll through my phone, looking at photos of my family, and wonder if they ever thought about me, or if my mom truly believed I was dead now. Every time I reached a breaking point, her words echoed louder, "Don't come back until you're successful." I started to hate her. But I also started to burn with this desperate need to prove her wrong. If success was the only condition for love, then maybe, just maybe, I could buy my way back into her heart. I clawed my way upward. I worked every crappy job you can imagine, dishwashing, janitorial work, overnight stocking. I showered at gyms when I could sneak in, $8 menu meals, and taught myself basic coding on library computers because it was the only thing that felt like it might lead somewhere better. By the time I was 21, I finally landed an entry-level IT position. It wasn't glamorous, but the paycheck felt like gold. I signed my first lease on a tiny apartment. No windows in the bedroom, but it was mine. For the first time, I had an address to put on forms. For the first time, I felt like maybe I wasn't worthless. Did my mother reach out? No. Not once. Birthdays passed. Holidays passed. I saw Facebook pictures of family gatherings, smiling faces, big dinners, my seat at the table long forgotten. My little sister grew older in those photos, and it hurt knowing I wasn't there to protect her. By 25, I had climbed further. I was making solid money, managing a small team, even saving for a house. And then, as if on cue, my mother reappeared. She called me out of nowhere, her voice suddenly sweet, dripping with a fake warmth that made me sick. "Oh, honey, it's been so long. We've missed you. Why don't you come visit? Your sister's been asking about you. You've made something of yourself now, haven't you?" I almost dropped the phone. I wanted to scream, to remind her of the night she locked me out, of the years I spent cold and hungry because she decided love was conditional. But instead, I stayed quiet. I listened. And that's when I realized, she hadn't called because she missed me. She called because she wanted to use me. Turns out, my parents were struggling. My dad's health had declined, medical bills were piling up, and suddenly their dead son was alive again, because he had money. I went once, just to see. When I walked through the door, the house smelled the same, but nothing felt the same. My mother smiled like nothing had ever happened, like she hadn't abandoned me on the street at 18. She even introduced me to relatives as, my son, the successful one. As if I'd just been away at college. As if I hadn't bled and starved my way into survival. I stayed for less than an hour. I hugged my sister, now a teenager, and whispered that I loved her, that I'd always be there for her. But I didn't stay for dinner. I couldn't. Because here's the truth I learned: sometimes, family is just a word people hide behind when they want something from you. Real family doesn't lock you out in the cold and change the locks. Real family doesn't decide your worth is tied to a paycheck. Now I'm 30, and my life is stable. I own a house. I have close friends who feel more like siblings than my own blood. I've built the family I never had. My mother still calls occasionally, always with some new request thinly disguised as concern. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's help with errands, sometimes it's, why don't you ever visit us anymore? I don't yell. I don't cry. I just tell her the truth: you told me I was dead to you. And you were right. That night, you buried the son who wanted your love. What's left is someone who doesn't need you anymore. And then I hang up. You said I was dead to you. Now you want me to save you. After I hung up on my mother that day, I thought maybe it was over. Maybe she'd realize I wasn't the scared 18-year-old boy she threw out anymore. But if there's one thing I've learned about her, it's that she doesn't take silence as an answer. She takes it as a challenge. Within a week, I started getting letters. Not sweet handwritten notes, but long guilt-soaked essays about family obligations and the importance of forgiveness. Each one ended the same way: a request for money. Sometimes it was for medications your father desperately needs. Other times it was, your sister's college tuition depends on you. The implication was always the same: if I didn't step in, I was abandoning them. And here's the twisted part: a small piece of me still wanted to help. Not because they deserved it, but because I remembered being 18 and freezing in that abandoned car, praying for someone, anyone, to care. I didn't want my sister to suffer like I did. So I did something risky. I reached out to her directly. The secret bond with my sister. At first, our conversations were cautious. She was still under our mother's roof, and I knew anything she told me could put her in danger if overheard. We started with short text messages. Her: hey. It's me. Don't tell Mom I texted. Me: never. I've missed you. Eventually, she confessed things that broke me. Our mother had turned my exile into a cautionary tale. She told my sister that I was a disgrace, that my suffering was God's punishment, and that if she didn't follow the rules, she'd end up like me. But my sister had seen through the lies. She admitted she'd kept the old photos of us hidden in a shoebox under her bed. She said, I never believed you were dead. I knew you'd come back someday. That message made me cry harder than I had in years. The reunion. When she turned 19, she secretly visited me for the first time. I'll never forget it. I opened the door to my apartment and there she was, trembling, holding a bus ticket in one hand and that shoebox of photos in the other. We hugged so tight I thought my ribs might crack. She whispered, I don't want to live like her anymore. I want to live like you. That moment cemented something inside me. I wasn't just surviving for myself anymore. I was building something for us. A new kind of family, one without conditions. My mother's fury. When my mother found out, she unleashed hell. She left me a 30-minute voicemail, alternating between sobbing and screaming. How dare you steal your sister away from me? You poisoned her just like you poisoned yourself. After everything I've sacrificed for you ungrateful children, this is how you repay me. She threatened to cut my sister off completely: no tuition, no inheritance, nothing. The irony wasn't lost on me: she had already cut me off at 18, and I turned out fine. I knew my sister could too. So I offered her a choice. I told her, you don't have to live under her rules anymore. If you want, you can stay with me. She moved in 2 weeks later with nothing but her clothes and that shoebox. Watching her take those first steps into freedom was like watching myself walk out of that house years ago, except this time, she wasn't alone. Rebuilding family on my terms. With my sister by my side, I finally understood something: family isn't about blood. It's about choice. Over the years, I'd collected friends who had become my true brothers and sisters. The coworker who slipped me free meals when I was broke. The neighbor who let me crash on their couch without asking questions. The gym buddy who pretended not to notice when I showered there just to stay clean. I started bringing them all together: barbecues, game nights, little traditions that felt more real than any holiday my mother ever hosted. My sister blended right in. She laughed more in 6 months with us than she had in her entire childhood. One night, after everyone left, she looked at me and said, "This feels like home." More than that house ever did. That's when I knew, we had one. My parents' decline. But of course, my mother wasn't done. As my father's health got worse, the calls became more desperate. She begged for help with medical bills, claimed she couldn't manage alone. I'll be honest, part of me wanted to cave. My dad was never as cruel as she was. Weak, yes. Silent, yes. But not malicious. There were times he looked at me with regret in his eyes, though he never spoke it aloud. When he eventually passed, I didn't go to the funeral. My sister did. She said our mother put on a performance: tears, wailing, talking about her perfect family. She never mentioned me, not once. It was as if I really had died at 18, just like she wanted. And maybe that was the moment I finally accepted it: in her world, I had. The final confrontation. Months later, I got one last call from her. She didn't even bother pretending this time. "You've made your life, fine. But your sister is still mine. She'll come crawling back to me, you'll see. And when she does, I'll make sure she never speaks to you again." I don't know what switch flipped in me, but I laughed. Not cruelly, but in disbelief. I told her, "You don't control her anymore. You don't control me. The day you changed those locks, you lost the right to call yourself our mother. You buried your son, and now you've lost your daughter too. You're the one who's alone, not us." And for the first time in my life, I hung up without guilt. Where we are now. It's been 5 years since that call. My sister is thriving, graduated college, has a job she loves, and even started her own little family. I'm the proud uncle to the sweetest niece in the world. When I hold that baby, I think about the cycle we broke. That child will never know what it feels like to be unloved by her family. As for my mother, I don't know. I don't check anymore. She could still be in that same house, waiting for a call that will never come. Maybe she tells people she has one child instead of 2. Maybe she tells them both of us are ungrateful. Maybe she tells them we're dead. But here's the truth: we're more alive than we've ever been. The letter that changed everything. It's strange how the past has a way of clawing its way back, even when you think you've buried it. For years, I thought I was finally free. Me and my sister had built our own lives, our own family, and my mother was just a ghost I refused to summon. But ghosts don't need permission. They just appear. Last year, one of those ghosts came in the form of a letter. The letter arrives. It was a plain white envelope with shaky handwriting on the front. No return address. At first, I thought it was junk mail. But when I saw my full name, first, middle, last, my stomach dropped. Nobody uses all 3 unless it's family. Inside was a letter written in my mother's unmistakable scrawl. The handwriting I'd seen on permission slips, chore charts, and those cold eviction notes she left taped to my bags when I was 18. It said, "By the time you read this, I may already be gone. The doctors don't give me long. I know I failed you, but I want you to know I only did what I thought was best. Please, before I die, come see me. If not for me, then for the family name. There are things you don't know. Things I never told you. At the bottom, in trembling ink, she had written, I'm sorry. It was the first time I had ever seen those words from her. My sister's reaction. When I showed my sister the letter, she froze. For a long time, she didn't say anything. Then she whispered, she doesn't deserve you going back. And part of me agreed. For years, my mother had made it clear, I was dead to her. She buried me with her words, and I had clawed my way out of the grave without her help. But another part of me, the part that had once begged for her approval, couldn't ignore the possibility that there was more to the story. What if there are things we don't know? I asked. What if she finally wants to tell the truth? My sister shook her head. The truth won't undo what she did. She was right. But that letter burned a hole in me. The return. 2 weeks later, I found myself driving back to the house I swore I'd never enter again. My hands shook on the steering wheel. I kept thinking about that night at 18, standing outside with my belongings in trash bags, watching her lock me out of my own life. The house looked smaller, weaker. Paint peeling, shutters hanging by a thread. The once perfectly manicured lawn was overgrown, weeds crawling up the walkway. When I knocked, it wasn't my mother who answered. It was a nurse. She looked me up and down and said, "You must be the son." I almost corrected her, I was the dead son, but I just nodded. Seeing her again. My mother lay in a hospital bed set up in the living room. She was frail, her face gaunt, her once sharp eyes dulled by sickness. For a moment, I didn't recognize her. This wasn't the woman who had thrown me out with fire in her eyes. This was someone small, almost pitiful. She looked at me and started to cry. Real tears. You came, she whispered. I didn't think you would. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to scream at her, to ask why now, why after 12 years of silence and cruelty she wanted to see me. But the words stuck in my throat. So I just said, I'm here. The confession. For hours, she rambled, sometimes lucid, sometimes lost in the fog of medication. But there was one moment when she was crystal clear. She told me about her childhood. About how her own parents had disowned her brother when he failed to get into medical school. About how she was raised to believe success was the only path to love, and failure meant exile. I thought I was protecting you, she said. I thought if I pushed you hard enough, you'd become strong. I didn't know I was killing you instead. She admitted that she regretted everything, but that regret had only come too late, after my father's death, after my sister left, after the silence in the house grew unbearable. Don't hate me when I'm gone, she begged. I've hated myself enough for both of us. The choice. I sat there, holding the hand of the woman who once told me I was dead. I thought about the freezing nights, the hunger, the loneliness. I thought about the family I had built without her. And I thought about my sister, who was right all along. Did I forgive her? I don't know. Forgiveness felt like too big of a word for what I gave her. What I did give her was presence. I stayed until she fell asleep. I sat in the house one last time, breathing in the scent of faded memories. And before I left, I whispered. You'll never know the life you missed. But I do. And it's beautiful. The aftermath. She passed 3 days later. I didn't go to the funeral. My sister didn't either. We grieved in our own way, not for the mother we had, but for the mother we never got. A month later, a lawyer contacted me. My mother had left a will. I almost ignored it, assuming there was nothing there for me. But curiosity won. To my shock, she left the house to me. Not to my sister, not to anyone else, just me. It felt like a sick joke. The house where I was told I was dead was now legally mine. Burning the past. I walked through every room. The kitchen where I ate silent dinners. The hallway where my sister and I whispered at night. My old bedroom, still painted the same color, but stripped of everything that was once mine. I could have sold it. I could have rented it. But instead, I did something drastic. I donated everything inside to charity, and then I sold the house. Every penny of that money went into a college fund for my niece. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The best way to kill a legacy of pain is to replace it with hope. Where we are now. My mother's gone. The house is gone. But I'm still here. My sister is still here. And my niece will grow up never knowing the poison that shaped us. Sometimes I wonder if my mother's apology was real, or just fear of dying alone. I'll never know. What I do know is this: I may have lost a mother, but I found peace. And peace, I've learned, is worth more than forgiveness. In the end, I realized I wasn't the one who was dead all those years ago. She was. The moment my mother locked me out, she buried herself in bitterness and control. I walked away with scars, yes, but also with freedom. My sister and I built something real, something she could never destroy, a family chosen, not forced. That's the ending. Not revenge, not reconciliation, just peace. And honestly, peace is enough.